Hi guys, welcome to Break the Chain. I'm here today with Alyssa Sulli. Welcome. Alyssa is an absolute powerhouse. She's got an impressive resume. She's been a manager of a Fortune 500 company. She's been a fundraising events coordinator, a fitness coach, a business owner, an empowerment coach, and a public speaker. She's kindly agreed to come on today to talk about her demons and how she's overcome destructive behavior. Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
Absolutely, yeah. So a little bit about my story. It goes back to I struggled with overeating, binge eating, and I became bulimic in my early 20s. And my story began when I was a younger child. I just grew faster than everyone. And for some reason, I grew this belief that my size wasn't okay. So when I was around 6 or 7, I could fit in my aunt's shoes, and she made a comment, and I don't think she meant anything bad by it, but I perceived it as, oh my gosh, I'm too big. And then by the time I was 9, I could fit in my stepmom's pants. And she had made a comment, oh, I can't believe you can fit in my pants. And I perceived it as, oh, it's not okay that I'm this size. And I was always the girl in the back of the line with all the taller dudes. And I just created this perception that my size was not okay. Like I wanted to be small and petite, and I was a muscular, bigger, taller girl. And I remember one time in middle school, I was standing in the locker room at the mirror, and there was a girl standing next to me, and I was washing my hands, and I looked up at myself. And then I looked over at her, and she was everything I wanted to be. She was small and petite, and she had perfectly straight hair and beautiful jawline. And I was this girl that had frizzy hair and was really big and had more of an Indian structured face. And so as I hit high school a few years later, that just my perception of myself really shifted, and I began to diet with my friends. We do cabbage soup and zone diet and Atkins and whatever we could. And by the time I hit my 20s, it had began to control my life, and I became a compulsive calorie counter, binge eater, compulsive exerciser, and bulimic. So that's kind of how it all began.
It's funny how different people grow. I remember there was a girl at my school, and when I was around 6, she was like a head taller than me. Literally,
Yeah, I was
like
that
a
girl.
full head. Now she's like up to about nipple height on me, and she just stopped growing. So like I don't know
Yeah,
how old, not very old, but she was like almost that tall when she was maybe 10 or something. And yeah, I
yeah.
was kind of super tall. I'm like 6'4" now, and I was like really,
Oh, wow.
really small. So I guess I've kind of got
Yeah,
um, inferiority. I feel quite not not big and strong in a way, even though I'm really tall. I kind of feel like I'm quite, I don't feel big, but everybody else
yeah,
sees me as big. So it's funny how different people portray themselves based on that super early childhood conditioning.
yeah,
What's it like?
absolutely.
I can relate slightly to some of the stuff. I mean, what's it like living with an eating disorder?
For me, it just really was, it controlled my life. It was this vicious cycle that I went through on a daily basis, that I was struggling to validate my self-worth. And so it kind of looked like I would I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't feel good about myself, and I'm not worthy. And so then I would binge eat, but I'd be counting my calories as I'm binge eating to hopefully not overdo it. But then I would overdo it, and I'd have to recover from the binge. And then I would go and work out and burn as many calories as I possibly could so that I would suddenly be worthy again. And then if I was worthy, that meant I was good enough for like a man, right? Because then I was pretty enough. And then I'd wake up the next morning and it was the cyclical cycle again, like I just wasn't worthy. And then eventually it evolved to adding laxatives and magnesium citrate, which was a drink, to clean out my body. And it just became this vicious cycle of, it just controlled everything. And I was just really unhappy. And I didn't know my worth. I didn't know how to identify it. And I masked everything with this compulsive behavior on a weekly basis.
Yeah, there seems to be something that kind of kicks in around, when all those hormones come in around puberty and everything becomes around about, how desirable you are to
Yeah.
to what you find attractive, and that's it kind of becomes the thing that shapes your entire reality, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I've had issues with the way, like I think everybody does have issues with the way that they look to themselves with their own body, to a degree, and I've kind of never been liked what I've seen in the mirror, which is, people will think that's crazy because obviously it's all super super relative, and I used to always be like, oh, I want a six pack and all these things because obviously because of what we see out there, and it's kind
Right.
of like the standard that's held,
Right.
and then I would eat myself to death, obviously because obviously I used to be a drug addict, and then when I sort of left that and I kind of ran away from that, and I never
Yeah.
sort of dealt with the problem, the deeper problem, and then it moved to biscuits, which was the worst for me. And as soon as I would get really anxious, yeah, just go drive, get in my car, go drive, get a packet of biscuits, and then I would, on the way home, eat them and eat the whole packet, and then feel absolutely sick to death. And
Yeah.
then try and go to sleep, and it'd be 10 o'clock, and you've got like sugar rush, and you're like, and your skin's all itchy, you're itchy, and you're hot, and you're irritated, and you're just like ah. And then sometimes I'd have to make myself sick to sleep, and that's, I wouldn't say that I was ever bulimic because it only happened a few times, but it was at that point where
Yeah.
I was kind of like, because I've had exes that have had bulimia, I've been like, whoa, man, you need to really watch that because that can go to a really bad place.
Yeah. That's what happened to me. I didn't struggle with the bulimic side for very long. For me, what happened was I was a compulsive calorie counter and compulsive binge eater and exerciser. But I had had two surgeries back to back years when I was 20 and 21. And I learned that before my surgeries, I could clean out my system. And they had me drink that magnesium sulfate, which is like the super sour drink that you put in the fridge, but it's all magnesium and it just like flushes your system. And I learned after the surgery, I'm like, oh, so after I binge, I can clean out my system. And that will make me prepare better and be ready for my workout sooner. But I realized after about 2 or 3 months that this is getting bad because now I'm doing it on an almost daily basis. And I had, at the time we had pagers. I paged my doctor who did the surgery and I said, part of the reason I was even doing it was because they put me on birth control. And the last time I had been on birth control, I had gained weight. And so I was in fear of gaining weight. So this vicious cycle of you don't want to change your body, but you're binge eating, but you're exercising, but now you're trying to just, flush it. Like it was just, again, that vicious cycle. And I told him what I was doing. And he's the one who said, well, that's a behavior of bulimia. And I never thought that laxatives would, going out the other end was bulimia. And he says, I want you to get off birth control right now. The only reason you're on it is to keep the cysts from coming back because I had ovarian cysts. And he says, I can't guarantee that the birth control will even do that. So get off of it. And I stopped after that. It took me like a week or so, but that didn't stop my other cycle of binge eating and exercise. And I had to go through another system to really heal from that. So yeah, but I get that.
I think I told you, I know someone that was addicted to laxatives, and she did it for so long, and now she can't go to the toilet anymore, and sometimes she
Wow.
can't go for 8 days, and
Oh my gosh.
and she has to go
Wow.
to the hospital
Oh,
and get help because it was going to destroy her kidneys and her liver and stuff,
oh my
and
gosh.
it's serious.
Wow.
And I think this is one of those things where it's so much more common than anybody knows. I think there's
Yeah.
so many people keeping this to themselves.
Well, and I didn't know there was harm in taking laxatives. I really didn't because I'm just assuming that it's a pill at the store. Like I'm in my early 20s. I really have no concept of drugs and prescription and all that stuff. So, and if you're not educated on it, you don't really know you're doing harm and then you just keep doing it and it's fixing whatever issue you're afraid of. That's where the the challenge comes in.
Yeah, I think we're like really conditioned not to think about the harm that drugs do because the fact that it is a business, the fact that you got a problem, oh, just pop a painkiller,
right?
And that's what my drug addiction was. Oh, I've got a problem. Let's pop a painkiller that masks everything over. Like painkiller. Let's just wipe this whole picture out. Like no,
right?
And I used to have this really bizarre thought where it's kind of like if there's a problem, I'll just have an operation when I'm older and they'll fix it. I don't know how my conditioning was kind of like in my head, which was so delusional because, ironically, having an operation is like one of my biggest fears. I couldn't think of anything worse than someone cutting my body open. Like that's just absolutely devastating, and I can't believe I used to think that because it's kind of like, oh well, whatever, I'll deal with it later. It's like sweeping everything under the mat, really.
Yeah, we just think that nothing's going to happen to us. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you kind of realize you're not invincible.
Right.
Sort of mid-20s, I guess.
Yeah.
That's when it happened for me anyway. How did you learn to start loving your body or accepting your body?
Well, that definitely took time. And I would have to say that it became a level of consciousness. Like I had to see what I was doing. I was so blind. I was living this cyclical system of self-destruction. But I was in so much distress and pain and upset that I had stopped by a Barnes and Noble in the town I was in, and I looked in like the self-help section, and there was a book called Breaking Free from Emotional Eating. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need that. So I got that book, and that book taught, her name is Janine Roth, and she became really famous eventually. At the time she wasn't, but like she was on Oprah and all that stuff, and Oprah followed her system. But it was about being conscious of your behaviors. It was about recognizing your emotions, why you're doing what you're doing, like a concept I'd never even understood or thought about. But she had a chart system that I began to implement, and I became aware of like, okay, this is emotionally why I'm doing this. I'm going to food not because I'm physically in hunger, but because I want to mask this pain. And so the self-acceptance and self-worth came when I began to heal the parts of myself that I was trying to avoid and hide, and the pain I was trying to just get beyond through these unhealthy behaviors. So it was really consciousness and learning what I was doing and why I was doing it, and shifting my belief systems, shifting my patterns. It's interesting because my girlfriend, she was like me. I didn't know her growing up, but she grew as fast as I did, right? And she thought it meant she was more beautiful than everybody else. So we had the same process, but my belief system was that meant I was ugly. So I had to then reprogram my mind to think differently. And I just had to, that came from a process of recognizing my talk track. Like, how am I talking to myself? Why do I have these negative thoughts? Where's my gratitude? I have 2 hands, 2 arms, 2 legs. I'm a healthy person. And all I am is thinking about everything I'm not. Like, when is that going to change? I have to change my perspective, my perception. And it was just becoming okay with who I was, and recognizing that my validation and worth isn't going to come from out there. It's going to come from within. And I was constantly that person that was looking for validation from everybody else. So if James didn't like me, if James said a thing a certain way, and I perceived it to mean that I wasn't good enough, then that validated I wasn't good enough. So it was really just a shift.
What do you think sort of fuels or set off that lack of self-worth in the beginning? And I guess you're saying that the fuel is the fact that you're talking to yourself in a certain way constantly. You're not good enough. You're not this. You're not that. Blah blah blah. You're not enough. You need more. No one likes you. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
If you do something wrong, be like, you idiot. You're an absolute idiot. You're useless. And I can kind of identify in my younger years that I've been spoke to like that a lot. And can you recognize the same thing?
Yeah. So are you referring like what fueled that?
What do you think? Where do you think it comes from, that lack of self-worth?
I think environment's a huge factor, and I think how you're raised and just how things are communicated to you. Because my girlfriend, her mom always said, "Well, it's beautiful to be the big one. It's beautiful to have big feet." But I was never, not that my mom ever said that my size wasn't okay. She was the same size I was when she was younger, right? It was the environment that I was exposed to. My grandmother was always like, on a diet, you need to go for a walk, you need to work out. So I think environment is a huge factor. I think what's fueled in our head and what we're exposed to on the radio and on television, the programming that's done at an early age, I think that's a huge contributing factor to why we can struggle with self-worth. And then we exhibit these unhealthy behaviors to control it. So I was trying to control it by now binge eating and dieting to have this perfect body that I would never end up having, because it was just this unhealthy cycle.
We've grown up through this size zero nonsense. I mean, like models, it was like, I don't find that attractive at all, but that was kind of like the standard of beauty, and having to look at that, and people are like objectifying and idolizing that physique. It's so, I mean, you literally have to eat lettuce
right
to look like that.
Yeah.
Or be
now it's the
anorexic.
Now it's the Kardashians. So now everybody buys those things to make their waist like suck in, and then somehow make their booty. Like I work out regularly, and at my gym they have specific glute workouts. Women want to form their butt because they feel that that's how it's supposed to look, like the Kardashians. I'm like, holy cow! Like, I don't even know if their butt is real. Like, I don't know. It's fine. You got a lot of work to do to get your butt to look like that. That's all I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Funny.
What does self-love look like to you?
Self-love it's freedom, in the sense that I don't wake up every day hating myself. I don't wake up every day exhibiting really unhealthy behaviors that bring me down. But it's also, self-love is a practice of recognizing what you like and what you don't like, and bringing that into your life. Exercise is something that I just love, because I love my endorphins going. I love the challenge. I love the mental game. I love all of it, right? So for me to not work out is really unfulfilling. It just needs to be a part of my life. And I know that, and my kids know that. So I'm taking action, I'm modeling it, I'm incorporating in my life. I know that I don't care for certain social settings or certain environments. So I love myself enough to not put myself in those situations, and to just rather surround myself with people who accept me and love me for how I am and who I am. So I think for me, self-love looks like, one, it's a source of freedom, of just being okay with who you are. But two, it's these practices that you're implementing to honor yourself, of this is what I like and this is what I don't like. And I don't have to compromise to what James wants. I can own what I like and be okay with it.
Yeah, and performing actions that are kind of looking at a bigger picture than now.
Yeah,
has been something I found difficult to do. I was like, I just want to feel good now.
Yeah.
I guess it's that coming down to that consciousness from the the eating disorders, and looking at the bigger picture and being aware that over the bigger picture, I always used to think, I was like, I'm kind of, I feel like the me, I always used to feel like the me that's 60 years old, if I make it that far, that's kind of a different person to a degree. Obviously it's not, and obviously it's still me inside, but it's like, I'm going to have matured by then, and I'm going to massively regret the idiotic actions that I've done for my whole life that have led me to the point where I could be, having some kind of chronic illness or disability from whatever stupid things that I've done, even if it's been like extreme sports and had an accident or internal damage from using drugs or whatever it might be, and trying to stop being almost considerate to another person. I've been like, I really need to look after this future conscious version of myself.
Yeah.
To whatever degree.
Yeah. Yeah. But what a blessing for who, like, I don't regret what I went through, because it took a mindset and perseverance, and it taught me a lot about my strength and my ability. Because what it took me 2 to 3 years to recover. What that took and what I had to learn about myself and the strength that I have, that I've carried, and I've applied those same tools in other areas of my life, that's invaluable. So I think I'm now at a point where, okay, I've grown and I've learned it. I definitely don't want to implement that, but I love myself enough that I want to live to 90. So I want to be exhibiting behaviors that are self-nurturing and self-caring and true to who I am. And so I get what you're saying there, but I definitely, no regret, just I've learned, and I'm not going to make those same mistakes again.
I don't have any regrets either now. I mean, apart from, I made my mum quite depressed from getting caught selling drugs and nearly going to prison when I was 18. Oh. And I kind of like look at that being like, I regret the effect that
what
had
you put
on
her through. Yeah.
I don't regret anything from me personally, but I can't say that if I didn't have some kind of like disability in later life, I wouldn't regret that. I think I would kind of be finding it hard not to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you find self-love in the most difficult moments?
It's really going within, because whenever we're not in a self-love mode, we're in a self-judgment, self-defeating thought. So it's again recognizing like what you bring to life, your character and your qualities. Because if I'm in self-defeating talk, I'm not recognizing how awesome I am. I'm recognizing everything that I think I'm not. And so you can't simultaneously have a thought of judgment and have a thought of self-love or have a thought of gratitude. So you get to choose. So if you're in that negative self-talk and you're not loving yourself and you want to shift it quickly, you've got to make your choice of, I'm going to think self-loving thoughts, or I'm going to think of gratitude. And to me, gratitude is easiest, because you can make it you focused or you can make it externally focused, but it's a quick, easy fix. So it's, if I'm in a self-defeating thought about my bad hair day, I must be ugly, I have a bad hair day. Well, at least I have hair. I mean, heck, I have friends that compliment my hair because their hair's too thin. So why don't I focus on that? Like, where are my thoughts? Where am I focusing, right? If I'm not in the mood to be complimentary to myself, well, I'm thankful I have my kids, or I'm thankful I have a cute pair of socks. I'm a sock person. And I always love, like, if I'm in a funky mood, that's a recommendation. You ever in a funky mood, just put on a cute pair of socks. It'll fix everything.
I love socks as well. I don't know why.
You
like
do?
when I get I mean, my socks, I wear them to death. They've all got holes in, but I don't know what it is about just buying a new pair of socks or getting socks for Christmas, and I'm just so happy to put on new socks.
Me too. That's my favorite thing at Christmas. Like, get me a pair of cute socks. Like, it's just fun.
Mine are pretty average, but I don't know what it is about them. But I really and underwear as well, just quality. I'm so scruffy, and I don't know what it is about it, but I really like it.
That's good.
What's you being managing a big company? You must have had to deal with a lot of kind of super uncomfortable situations with managing people. How do you deal with confrontation?
How do I deal with confrontation? I think that's definitely leadership style. So I guess when it comes to, are you referring to conflict like among associates, or?
There's so many dynamics in leadership that I kind of, I'm trying to practice now at this point, because I imagine that I'm going to be moving into that field more and more. And, there's kind of like, when somebody kind of comes towards you aggressively and you have disagreements and you have to resolve agreements, and especially if you are in the position of leadership and, you have to resolve things for not for you or for them necessarily, but for kind of the greater good of the picture that you're serving.
Yeah. I think for me, the first place I have to go to is compassion, and that I'm not any better than them. Because a lot of times that's when my ego kicks in and I'm like, well, who the heck are you, right? And I think that's the first place that I'm going to go. Like now I'm in business with my ex-husband. So you can only imagine that we get along really well, but like there's definitely times and you're super comfortable with each other and there's conflict, right? And I have to remember that at the core of him and the core of anybody else, they're a really great person. So something is triggered, something emotionally is going on, and let's communicate and talk about it. Let's identify what's the need. So if they're coming at me, they have a need. If I'm coming at them, I have a need, or my ego's charged. So it's really emotional regulation as we're often taught, and it's finding compassion and really communicating what's going on with you and your need, and how can I serve and help you, and let's find some balance and compromise in the situation.
Yeah, I'm finding, I totally agree. I'm finding so much of that coming up now, especially, sharing things like this online, and you share ideas or opinions sometimes, and people come back being like, no, or, I've had some really aggressive comments and stuff, and you kind of have to be like, trying to see that this person has probably been triggered by something you've said, and it's not necessarily, something that they're kind of reacting to something that they've already been, in a way that they've already been conditioned, and and literally just thinking compassion, and remember, that's hard.
No, I agree. It's funny is I had my mom read one of my ebooks I wrote, and she had a comment. She's like, I have a hard time with this sentence. And she's like, but I think I'm totally projecting on you, because this reminds me of a situation from when you were a kid, and it's triggering that. And I find that, like, on posting in social media, I love to be creative, but like I posted as a joke, like I'm doing these expectation versus reality. And I just think they're goofy and funny, right? And so I found this like fitness model, and she's like posed like funky. And so I tried to do the same pose, and I put myself in the same position, and then I nailed it as a joke. And it was not well received by some people. And then some people were like, no, your body is great. And I'm like, well, that wasn't even like what I was going for. I was just making light of something. And I said, I feel like a pirate, like just making a joke, but I can see how what you're going through, like it's hard. And actually my friend, Jay, he had said, you have to be true to yourself and put content and put information out there that's true to you. And not everybody's going to like it, and you got to be okay with it. And I'm finding the same thing. Like, you're just creative, and you're letting the flow happen for you, and it's not going to align with everyone, and that's okay.
Where do you think you can find fulfillment and joy in life?
I think fulfillment for anyone, but I know for me, in just learning and growing as an individual, it comes from within. We live our lives externally constantly. We're looking for validation. We're exposed to this programming all around us of, you need Botox, you need a boob job, you need a bigger butt, you need a smaller butt, you need to be thin, you need to be heavier. And none of that matters. At the end of the day, you've got to go within and just know that your fulfillment and joy is going to come from within. And so I go inward, and I'm a big meditator. And then I also believe in gratitude, because if you're never grateful for anything, how can you be fulfilled? Because you're constantly seeking. And that was how I was when I was in my 20s. Like, no matter what I was like seeking perfectionism from my income, from what I had, from my body, everything. It was just this constant effort to be fulfilled on an external level. And I'm more happy now, divorced, in business with my ex-husband, have 2 kids, and I have lived by myself half the time. And I literally could sit in solitude. Like I love to just be by myself. I'm one of those people. Like, I like to be social, but I can turn off for like a good 3 or 4 days and just be by myself, and I don't need anybody. And there's fulfillment in that. And just knowing that I don't need anything beyond myself to feel love, happiness, and joy in life.
Yeah, I've been told that we should seek perfection, but it should be a spiritual one.
Which I don't think is ever attainable, though. Like perfection, what is perfection in spirituality? Honestly, what does that look like?
Not that we can, maybe won't achieve it, but we should at least be aiming that way. And as long as you're trying to pull it out of, material stuff, it's so elusive. You're chasing and you're chasing, and you just end up worn out. And that gratitude practice, and it is a practice, And it is
Yeah.
something that you have to start doing. And it is something that I found incredibly frustrating because I was so ungrateful.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%
Yeah.
ungrateful. And I didn't even know I was ungrateful because everything that I'd been told in life was kind of the opposite of what was true. So you have
Yeah.
to like let go of your entire doctrine, which is really actually can almost make you, well, it can literally make you suicidal, letting go of everything you believe, because it's kind of the thing that holds you stability. And it's like letting
Right.
go of everything and like feeling like you're going into completely into the unknown. And it's really actually scary letting go of that. But it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely think it's a step-by-step process. I think that's why it took me 2 to 3 years, but that's why I recovered from my addictive behaviors in that space, because I didn't try and I didn't expect an overnight fix. And I think that's where the, like, I'm not the person that's, I'm a smoker for 50 years and then I just like cold turkey. For me would be a progressive process of looking. I don't know, smoking is different. I don't know anything about it. It's like a really bad example. Um, but for me, for eating, it just really going through the process of identifying and nurturing myself. It was so gradual. It was so not overnight at all. But that's where my strength came in, is I kept that yo-yoing, and then I like peaked and I kept my peak, you know.
I heard people talking about, you know, gratitude and being present, being in the moment. I heard people talking about this for years and just being like, yeah, yeah, whatever, being in the present. And then for me, there was actually a moment when I was stood in the garden and I was looking at, it was a lemon tree, and I was looking at it. And then it was just kind of like all of a sudden in a moment, it was just this vibrance and this beauty. And I was,
Wow.
I'd been in that spot hundreds of times. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it was just like boom, and it was just like, and it was like peace
Yeah.
and
Oh,
vibrance.
that's
And I was
awesome.
just like, ah, I think this is what they were talking about. I
That's
think this is
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
And I think that, Russell Brand, something he said, I heard him say yesterday, there is beauty in every moment,
Yeah.
but it's like your consciousness, it can like flicks between dimensions so fast. It goes
Yeah.
from being in the mind to being in the body to, and you can put it into the TV, and you can kind of like it flicks around all over the place. And you
Yeah.
do actually have to bring it out of your mind, out of obsession, out of technology, and just bring it here, to literally here and now. And that's why
Yeah.
meditation is amazing, because you don't do that. I spend so much time in my mind, and I think every addict does,
Yeah.
just going around and round, obsessing over things, and wanting things. Just, I mean, that's why desire is kind of like is the enemy of love, because
Mm.
to have desires is to say that I don't have what I want. And
Yeah.
when obviously there's things that you have to do and needs that you have to cover, but generally you don't need stuff to be happy.
Right.
It's not necessary, is it?
Yeah. I always say it's a compliment to yourself. Like, I'm grateful and I'm fulfilled with myself, and everything else is a compliment. Like, I wouldn't want to live my life without my kids, right? So there's fulfillment in having them, but they are a complement and they are an extension to my fulfillment. They are not my fulfillment. So that's how I perceive it.
Well, when you apply that gratitude to them,
Yeah.
because like I think we do need, there's things that we do need, and then obviously you have to deal with the game and the puzzle of work and earning money, and which has always been very elusive for me. It's not something I've ever enjoyed doing. It's felt like just like so frustrating, thinking like you have to go to work for your whole life, and money's been something that's just like been elusive to me, because I've like the second I've had it, I've spent it down to the last dollar.
Mm.
Exactly, I've just got rid of it because I've had negative beliefs around money, and it's been another one of them things where I've been able to like I used it to try spending money to try and make me happy. It was a source of attempting to fulfill myself through
Sure.
spending. And Yeah, by dealing with that kind of like that void, and gratitude really has been one of the greatest tools for doing that,
Yeah.
for actually for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Gratitude is really, really important.
How do
Go ahead.
you how do you overcome stress?
For me, I think everybody's different in their modalities to overcome stress, but I think for me, it comes down to exercise is a way I relieve it, because it's like the energy is like just I'm exerting so much energy that I'm just like pushing it out. And meditation, going inward and just in stillness and getting out of my own way. So for me, it's exercise, meditation. And when I give to others, it's just so freeing. And it just, you just, when you're in stress, you're just thinking about yourself, right? So when I can stop thinking about me and everything I don't have and give to someone else, it's a great practice to just, I relieve my stress and I'm just giving, and I'm nurturing, and I feel more fulfilled within myself. And then that's a practice of gratitude too, of just being, gracious and giving to others, but also being grateful for everything that you have. There's several practices I have, I guess, but for me, stress relief would be exercise, meditation, gratitude, and giving to others. Those would be my primary ones.
That's
Kind of center
amazing,
myself.
and
Yeah.
that's where I've ended up as well.
Yeah.
From that's how I've saved myself from absolute misery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the giving, the other things are, it's all super important. It's all super important, all that stuff. But the giving is kind of like, because when you decide to give, you kind of put that desire aside. You put
Yeah.
your wanting aside and being like, oh, forget it. Doesn't really matter what I want, because that wanting is causing misery anyway.
Right.
That
Yeah.
wanting is probably causing the stress. Anxiety and fear comes from not getting what you want. That's
Yeah.
what creates it. So if
Yeah.
you can putting that aside, and that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so interesting that everybody gets there in a different way,
Right.
and you often more often than not through a severe amount of suffering, which is unfortunate. I mean, that's something
Right.
I don't know if there's anything you could have said to me that would have stopped me from going down the path that I did. But
Yeah.
maybe if someone had said to me, just really, really take a deep consideration of where things are going by speaking to people who have done what you have done, and
Mm.
where it's led them, and what's the conclusion that they came to, and the practices that they use to actually overcome that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for me, that's a maturity thing, because when I was in my teens and in my 20s, I don't know that you could have told me, but I don't know that I would have listened. But now I'm like, okay, what was your experience? Because how can I fail faster, or how can I just not go through the chaos of what I'm going to go through and just absorb it? So I think that for me, I think of the level of maturity and the openness that you have to receive that information, because you know how they say when when the student is ready, the teacher will come. I think that was true for me with my unhealthy behaviors, with my dieting and all that stuff for so long. I was ready for the teacher, so I was willing to listen and I was willing to follow. And anytime before that, I wasn't ready.
Mm.
So even if I'd heard her story, I would have been like, okay, well, that's not me. You know what I mean?
Same. I was
Yeah.
unbelievably stubborn.
Yeah.
Do you think that not being authentic is a big problem?
I think being inauthentic is a problem when it's unfulfilling for you. So, which I think for most people it's unfulfilling, but you have to be conscious that it's unfulfilling. Like loving yourself is being true to who you are as an individual. And it's being okay with, so let's say I go to a party and I want to wear a pink dress, but everyone is wearing black. and I don't want to wear the black dress, but I wear the black dress anyway. And I show up at the party, and everybody then accepts me. And then I'm supposed to drink because everybody else is drinking. So I have a drink even though I don't want to drink. So I'm being authentic to who I am. I'm just following the crowd because that's what everybody is saying, and that's how I'll be accepted. But really, first and foremost, I don't even want to go to the stinking party. I'd rather sit at home in my pajamas. And if I do go to the party, I want to wear the pink dress, and I don't want to drink. I want to drink bubbly water. That would be true to me. Like, that would be how I would show up. And I wouldn't stay the whole time. I would talk and mingle. If I felt that it was a negative energy, I'd leave. But that's being authentic to myself. So it's really being conscious of, okay, do I feel good in who I'm being by putting on this mask and showing up how everybody else wants me to show up? So it's not a problem if you're okay with living that way. But I think if you're conscious enough to recognize that you're just going through the motions to meet everybody else's needs so you can think that you're fulfilled, but you're not, I think that's where the problem lies. But you've got to be really aware of it.
Yeah, I think that's what led me into the entire disaster in the first place, is peer pressure. That's kind of what led me into drugs. You know, and obviously I ended up enjoying that, but I wouldn't have gone there if it hadn't been for trying to impress my friends and feeling insecure and needing to fix all of those anxieties. I mean, going to a party for me now, oh God, I mean, there's things like some festivals and stuff where it's like I would really still enjoy to go and do that, but it's hell, because in these environments I'm just like, I want to do all the drugs. I just want to get absolutely leathered, and for me it's kind of like I sort of wish that I could still do it, but house parties and stuff, that for me would just be kind of like not that fun anymore. And I find that, you know, when people are drunk, they're unconscious.
Yeah.
And by choice, by design.
Right.
That's what.
Right.
And now having a conversation, kind of you talk to them and they're like, "Get away from me! You're making me think too much. Leave me alone."
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel the same way.
Yeah. What has been the most valuable lesson that you've ever learned?
I think that probably that my joy and my love and my happiness isn't going to be found outside of me. And I'm not perfect at it. Like, I don't want to claim that I have this shit all dialed in and perfect, but I do know that when I'm living to please other people, it's part of what led to my divorce, to be honest, is that I wasn't living me. I was living I was the softball mom. Everybody knew who I was. I was participating in everything. I was on the board. I was picking up my kid. Like, I was just everything that society said I was supposed to be. And when I went inward and I listened to my intuitive drive, I said, this isn't the life I want. This isn't the relationship I want. This isn't the person that I want to continue to be with. I took action and I made the changes. But that's the biggest lesson, is if I'm listening to myself and my needs and my wants, I'm way more fulfilled. And everybody says the divorce should be horrible and that your kids will be upset. My kids are handling this stuff pretty damn good. I mean, we live 2 miles apart. They see us all the time. Like, it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good considering. Like, I think my biggest lesson is to trust yourself and go within and really listen to yourself, because when you don't, that's the self-destructive behavior. And though I wasn't exhibiting self-destructive behaviors, I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't living out of passion. I was living out of what everybody else said my life should look like. I don't care about things. I'm not like I don't care about shoes or purses or the coolest car or the coolest house, or like, I would rather learn. I love, like, my biggest value is growth, because I feel like that's the value that supports all my other values, which is love and community and all that stuff. And so that's a really long-winded answer, but to clarify, for me, going within and trusting yourself is probably the biggest lesson, because anytime I don't in life, that's when I get into a deep hole of yuckiness.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really feel like that fulfillment comes from doing your duty. I personally believe that we all have a duty to do. Obviously, being a parent's part of your duty, and obviously having to look after your children, and for me, I feel like it is, you know, the world of mental health and helping people with addiction and these things that I feel like I'm built and conditioned to do these things, and I feel like from doing these things, and it's never the same for two people ever. You know, it's everybody's duty is something that they do have to go within and really ask themselves, what is it that I am not want to do, but supposed to be doing,
right?
To find that fulfillment.
And that's where, like, you know, we have that custom product business, but my passion is helping people through the journey of struggling with self-love and acceptance, because I live this life of trying to be perfect, and I'm not perfect, but I'm okay with that. But I've definitely, that's where my passion lies. And I agree, like, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't go within. I was trying to mask it for so long. And then people come to me for stuff, and I'm like, well, they come to me because at my core, that's how I'm serving, and I just need to go there more. And so I get it. And I think that's what you're doing with Break the Chain, which is super, super cool.
I love it. I've never had feelings of fulfillment until I did this.
Oh, really?
No,
oh, that's so awesome.
Not really. No, it was just miserable. I was just always needing more and more and more. I think like you can kind of use that perfectionism in a good way. If it's perfection to find your own worth, it's going to be kind of miserable. But if you're trying to use your perfection to benefit something like a wonderful project that's really good for a lot of people, then you know, you're going to do something really cool. So I guess it's kind of like which direction you're directing that energy in.
And how you're defining it, for sure. Yeah. For me, the word perfect just meant everything had to be aligned. And I was a stickler, like no yuckies on the ground, and like just everything had to be perfect. So, and that can happen in developing a business and stuff like that. And I definitely don't want to function that way. I want fluidity in my effort to create a perfect system that's supportive and encouraging and making a difference, which I think you're doing with Break the Chain. So.
And you sound like you're doing amazing things as well. And thank you so much for reaching out to me. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you?
They can find me at alyssasulli.com. And then I also have my social media handles, alyssa.sulli on Facebook, and the same for Instagram, alyssa.sulli.
Awesome. Check her out because she's doing some amazing things. If you enjoyed this interview, check out Break the Chain, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, and do all that stuff. You guys probably already know where we are. But thank you so much for coming on today, Alyssa. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, James. You have a great day.